So when was the last time you shared about the project that you're working on? Now, if you cannot remember or you cannot recall, then it could be that you've fallen for this thinking or this idea that no one wants to listen to engineers, especially those who are in the middle of their journey. So there's a problem with this thinking because this thinking holds back innovation. It also holds back leadership. And worst of all, it holds back the next generation of engineers who are waiting for someone to go first so that they can learn from. Now, in this recording, we'll talk about four things. One, why engineers are silent. Two, why we think that engineers already know how to share. Three, what the cost of silence, and four, what to do about it going forward. So in my early career days when I was starting out, I remember that I had the opportunity to speak to engineers, some of them more experienced than myself, some of them having about even 8 years, having gone or rather having worked in the industry. So in all those conversations of mine, I was privileged enough to hear from one very senior engineer. This was what he said. Mr. Young Man, you see these guys who are making noise on social media. These ones that speak so much about being experts. They know everything. They know what is going on. Even what you are doing right now, if given the opportunity or asked to deliver on the work that you're doing, those guys are unable to deliver. So here's my suggestion for you. Try to learn the work. Put in the effort of learning the work and let the results speak for themselves. So of course, I mean, being young, I listened carefully, followed through the advice, not knowing exactly when to get yourself out of that situation. However, when I think about it right now, I am convinced that there's some truth to that statement. There's some element of truth to it. Because once you start opening your mouth, I mean, you should be able to show that you're competent. I mean, perceived competence per se. But it also makes sense once you're able to deliver the work from a basis of executed confidence. I mean, you have done the work before, now you know how it works, you know exactly how the processes come about, and it is easier for you to deliver the work. So, if you in the infrastructure space, for example, there's this tag or rather this measurement area that he said you need to deliver the project on time. So you're measuring time and also on budget. So these two functions, when they align, it actually comes to what would be called competence. And for you to really get that competence requires that your execution is quite good, and execution now involves other teams, and knowing exactly what moves actually what needs to be done after step A, step B, and how you can save time on process 1, 2, 3, and that comes with learnings. So there's truth to that statement, but also there's also the other side of the coin. Because if the results speak for themselves and there's no one to hear or there's no one around to listen, then what is the point? If, for example, you're reporting to a manager and that you are convinced that you've done a good job, the designs are working fine, you are supporting teams, I mean, from your side, clean, I have done my very best. But then, assuming that your manager is not that good at speaking about the good work that you do on the project, especially to the person that has the powers to affect your life, for example, in terms of either compensation or in terms of even promotion and even better opportunities for you. If this manager is unable to speak to those points quite well, then what is the point of you being silent? I mean, you could be building billion-dollar infrastructure projects, you could be leading teams or even bringing business to the company. But then, if you have not said anything about it, then it could be that you're waiting for permission, or that you have what is called the fear of the unknown, or you could also be giving excuses to yourself. For example, one may say that, I would start sharing when I start my company, or I would start sharing once I do A, B, C, and D. Once you put the sharing date to a future date, you've already fallen into a trap, because by the time you feel ready to share, by the time you now want to get out of the shelf, you have already forgotten the most important lesson. And these lessons actually touch on various issues. For example, the moments of mess, the moments of indecision, the moments that you really didn't know what's supposed to be done in a certain process, the things that you were not taught in school. I mean, this is now where value creation happens, especially when you're starting out. And therefore, you may ask, how then does one protect against such loss? Now, there are a couple of ways to do that, but one of them is, very simple. Just document. Don't try to teach. Document. And documentation could be as easy as, for example, writing down the strategy that did not work, breaking down the pricing model that failed. It could be, for example, sharing about the meeting that you led for the first time and how awkward it was. Or it could be something like you went to site, you took a decision on site that really affected the project in a big way. Something that is quite simple. Why? Because that is documentation. It is you and the way that you're interacting with the project and what you see. It is your perspective. It doesn't really need to be that good. It is your perspective, it is what you see. And here is the irony. Engineers already know how to share. And we know that is the case because once you write a report, that is already sharing. Once you log errors, already that is sharing. And once you annotate code, that is already sharing. The mindset already exists. The biggest challenge is we don't think about it and that we are only logging these systems in private systems. For example, emails, WhatsApp, notebooks. What if we shared more of this? What if 1,000 engineers would be putting out this lesson? Would be having the most practical business library ever. But again, why are we not really taking action on this? Because if you try looking at this information online, for example, very, very, very few engineers are sharing their journey. And it could be that we want to feel safe. Not sharing, feel safe. No one will attack you. No one will come after you. But again, this comes at a cost. For example, engineers experience burnout because they really think they are the only ones going through such challenges. Teams repeat the same mistakes over and over, costing the company in terms of project time and also capital resources. Technical excellence does not really translate into business leverage. Why? Because no one knows the story behind the solution. So what does sharing look like? First of all, let's look at what it is not. Sharing is not being a full-time content creator. But then again, it is not also about sharing your every move. Sharing is putting aside time once a week, for example, to say, well, this is what I tried out this week. This is what worked. This is what did not work. This is the lesson I have learned. If I was to start this project again, this is what I'll do different. Simple and straightforward. And you shouldn't really worry so much about the format. Rather, the most important thing here would be the habit itself. Just imagine a post on LinkedIn or a short video reflection after you have completed the project. A write-up on a note, for example, that where you log the outcomes and the decisions before and after. Very simple and straightforward. One recording a week equals to 52 playbook entries a year. If, say, even 100 of us would do such a thing, that would be a great deal of a business library to have. So why should anyone start now? Because you don't need to be done to be useful. And engineers who start sharing in the middle of their story are engineers who really build the future. Because done is polished, but in progress is practical. That's where the real learning happens. In the pivots, in the moment of mess, in the moments of indecision, that's where real value occurs. So if you're building something, start sharing today so that someone else does not have to begin from zero. So for the engineers, for the leaders, for the people involved in the business of infrastructure, start sharing your journey. Tag this channel, put your stories in the comments, because engineers don't just build systems, they build the future. And the future becomes better if we stop staying silent.